Li-Ning has just released what they claim is the lightest basketball shoe on the market, what they call the Li-Ning Gamma. Now, number one, is it the lightest basketball shoe on the market? And number two, if it is, what are the performance implications of that? Let's get into it. And thanks, Li-Ning, for sending me a pair of the Gammas to check out. However, this video is by no means sponsored, and as always, all opinions, good, bad, and indifferent, are all my own. Now, starting off, I guess I'll just give the biggest spoiler away in the beginning of the video, but yes, this is the lightest basketball shoe on my 2024 guide. If you want to check this out, it's in the description below. But when I sorted my guide by weight, it is the lightest basketball shoe by almost an ounce out of all the shoes I have tested, and that is standing at number one. I think it's 97 shoes that is on the 2024 guide, then obviously more on the 2023. So yeah, for sure, it is the lightest basketball shoe out there. But how did they get it that light? There's a lot of other shoes that use the same materials. In the Gamma, I think number one in the uppers, the entire upper is TPU weave. A lot of it, they use yarns of different types of textile, whereas in these, it's all super light TPU. And the way that it's woven, that just dense, tight TPU weaving, a lot of times you can get away with not putting really any foxing at all on a shoe and keeping it pretty darn stable with just the shape of the mid and outsole, which we'll talk about. Now, number two, the tongue in it is serrated pretty much the entire way up. The only place they have padding in it is where the laces would irritate you, which I really did like. I had literally zero lace irritation on this. The laces are reinforced with a pretty thin layer of paneling on there. And then in the rear foot, you actually do get two heel counters. The carbon fiber one, I had really a heck of a time getting my blade through that. That is legit strong carbon fiber, but it is also light and very, very thin. The interesting thing is, if you look at the breathability on the Li-Ning Gammas, they did still heat up 131.1 degrees. Even if you look at the breathability mapping of them, I mean, fog is just blowing out of everywhere on these. That's how light the uppers are. The tongue is, just super porous. The reason for that, though, is the removable insole. Now, this is a thermoplastic insole, which, keeps the shoe light as well, except it also traps a lot of heat. When I took this out, that breathability went down 30 degrees to about 100.2 degrees. So if you want to make this shoe ultra breathable, you can always take this out and put something like a flat sock in there. I'll leave links to these in the description below. This video is not sponsored by them, but that would be the obvious answer to make these, number one, not only the most lightweight shoe on the market, but also one of the most breathable, because anytime you're around that, mid 90s to low hundreds in breathability, that's usually where you get, those are the most breathable shoes on the market. So as long as you take this out, you're getting both. And I do want to make one mention about heel slippage in these. The inside fabric on these is just so tacky, right? It just gets so much friction with your sock. It's comfortable, it's padded, right? But the way it interacts with the sock fibers really holds you in there. I'm not sure over time when that wears down, does that induce some heel slippage? Remember, the foam's gonna wear down a little bit too, so you're gonna sink in there. So I'd say, initially heel slippage was mild to moderate, and that's really it. But putting a bulkier orthotic in there is definitely gonna induce some more. So I think if you're putting orthotics in these, they should be low profile. That should help stop any slippage in these. But with how light the Gammas are, do they resist any wear? If you look at the upper durability test on these, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, the burr does start to, yeah, it for sure takes off that sheen of that iridescent layer, right? That little paneling, right? But it does not get through the TPU weave. We've seen this a lot. TPU yarns are super strong, number one, to blunt trauma as well as to abrasion. So really, I think for dragging and sliding, number one, it's a ton of outsole tread that comes up over the top of these. But for dragging or sliding, even on a really gritty outdoor court, yes, you're gonna take off the iridescent layer, but that TPU yarn is probably gonna last longer than you think it's going to. Now, getting into the midsole teardown, I actually ended up doing a members only video just on this teardown because it took me so long. The carbon fiber in this is super strong, and it is all the way through the shoe, right? You got it going all the way from the heel into the forefoot, then you have this basically springboard plate of carbon fiber that goes from the midfoot of the shoe all the way into the forefoot. That's a shank score of 0.4 for those of you keeping track at home. The rest of it is an entire bed of boom foam, which in and of itself is a pretty darn light foam. We've seen that in the comparison of Boom and Zoom X foam. Now, if you look at that on the bounce height test, got 43 centimeters in the heel, and shocker, 43 centimeters in the forefoot. That shows you how insulating boom foam is. Those thermoplastic foams, right? They are pretty insulating. They do a pretty decent job, no matter if it's a high stack or a low stack. And that's why you can get carbon fiber so close to the footbed when you're using these thermoplastics, because they're so protective, right? And they're so good at shock absorption that you can put that really stiff carbon fiber pretty close to your actual foot and you still don't feel it, which I think is one of the big marvels of those thermoplastic foams that have been coming out recently. However, I think the biggest feat in these is just how stable that midsole stays on these after being so light. And we'll see when we get to the outsole tread and the speed ratio, what that full length carbon fiber does in terms of the launch on these as well. And so speaking of that outsole tread, if you look at the pattern of this, honestly reminds me of a lot of tennis shoes that are being put out right now, which is that really flat herringbone, almost razor pattern. In this, you know, it's really a radial pattern, right? Like there is a radius to this. And so this is gonna grip pretty much anything. Now, the thing that Li-Ning has said is that the rubber is very, very thin and that they have an additive in there which increases the grip. Now, these things on an indoor hardwood court, I mean, it's like glue on the court. I've never seen a shoe grip this hard initially. These do pick up dust, however, just wiping it down with my hands even really just, you know, completely took that away. If you look at the grip test ramp, slipped at 45 degrees, which is up there with, you know, the highest gripping shoes out there. It is not the most gripping shoe, but once these start heating up on a court, it is just crazy. Number one, the sound they produce, that sticky sound they produce, it is just crazy the amount of tack these things, the feeling of tack on your foot, right? It is just insane. Even on an outdoor court, they have the same tack feeling as they do on an indoor court, which is really hard to do because if you play on both surfaces, you know that in some shoes, the rubber compound and the hardwood just, you know, the mixture of the two of them just produces that really interesting tacky sensation. But on outdoor courts, you really just can't get that. Whereas in these, they grip just as hard and just as, you know, with that real tacky feeling on even a slick painted outdoor court they do on an indoor court. It's really a crazy, interesting sensation. Now the durometer of these only comes in at a 14.5, but if you look at the outsole durability test on them, 10 seconds, highest grit sandpaper, not even a millimeter of damage. I mean, you can barely tell I did it. So, you know, it's the additives in the rubber that a lot of these companies are putting in, not necessarily the hardness, that is making them good in terms of durability. And that's interesting because typically you have to make the rubber super hard, right, to get it to resist wear, and then that makes it not so good for indoor courts. That's why you really can't wear a outdoor tennis shoe on an indoor hardwood court, but on outdoor courts, they grip fine, whereas in these, you can pretty much grip anything. And honestly, the grip of these and the weight of them really do have some implications in terms of the performance and fit of them, which we'll get to in a second. But before we get into the fit, I do have to make mention of the most insane part of these shoes, which is their speed ratio. Coming in at 3.66, shank score of 0.4 bumps them up to a 4.06, and that is the fastest basketball shoe on the market right now, at least by my testing methods. And honestly, I didn't even think it was close. These things are like the GT Cut 3, but with the shank in them, right? With that really snappy feel to them, right? The GT Cut 3 gets a lot of its speed from how light it is. The Zoom X foam is so light, right? The Zoom X foam is a little bit lighter than Boom foam, but in these with that shank that goes full length, that Boom foam plus how light these shoes are, and with the inflare in them, which we'll talk about in the fit section, just how they kind of ride on court. Honestly, it is not even close. These aren't even playing the same sport as other shoes in terms of speed. Like I said, there are some caveats to these that comes mainly in the fit of them. Now, number one, these are pretty just normal medium fit shoes, right, in terms of length as well as width, which is nice for, you know, how light they are. It does have an 11-degree inflare as well to them, so they are pretty darn inflared. And so, you know, a narrow and medium foot, and just go true to size, a 2E, honestly, I broke these in at my standard size just because the uppers are so light. If you do have a tailor's bunion, you're probably gonna wanna go up that 1/2 size just because of this TPU piece. However, this does break in, so that is nice to know. In terms of the snake bitten foot, and in terms of, you know, the ailing foot or any, you know, things you might be bringing to the basketball court. In terms of heel pain, ball of foot pain, especially big toe joint arthritis, for a lightweight shoe, I can't get over how good these are, how protective they are, right? And, you know, in terms of tendonitis, things like that, they do have so much support to them that they are great. In terms of someone who is a heavier player, who's also prone to ankle spraining, I'll give this caveat. I did not find these unstable whatsoever, and I do have a busted left ankle from, you know, a year and a half ago, as a lot of you know. And I did not feel unstable one bit in these. But with the inflare to them, how hard they grip the court, how tacky they are, and how lightweight they are, I could see someone who is a little bit heavier as well as an ankle sprainer maybe not having as much confidence in these, or just having a really large learning curve. In terms of, you know, braking on these and in terms of coming to a stop, these do have a learning curve to them, right? You definitely have to kind of adjust your playing for a little bit to account for how hard these things grip. For someone who's a little bit of a heavier player and an ankle sprainer, you know, you just might want to either, number one, play at half speed in these for a while, get used to them, or like I said, there are other shoes out there, even if you want to get a Li-Ning or Way of Wade shoe, there are other shoes out there that have similar characteristics in terms of grip, which might be a little bit more protective for those ankle sprainers. Everybody else though, I mean, like I said, I did not feel unstable in these whatsoever, and that was a real surprise. I thought I was gonna be rolling over in these like crazy. And even when I was doing kind of like my little roll test, putting all my body weight on them, it was pretty hard to get these to come over. So like I said, I think just a little bit of a caveat there. Like I said, with that 11-degree in flare, if you are a super out-flared foot, maybe banging against these two. So those would just be the two people I would say watch out for on these. Everybody else, like I said, for how lightweight, how low profile these are, it is insane how protective they actually are on your foot. Last but not least, getting into the performance, you know, playability of the Gammas. Like I said, I was just shocked at how stable they were, especially when trying to do some, you know, weird, you know, pirouettes around the, you know, the rim, especially for someone like me who is, you know, I have got the feet of an elephant, right? I mean, I'm not super nimble on foot, but these are. And the thing is that with that full-length carbon fiber, and almost like that springboard plate you get in the Curry line too, it's the same feeling, right? It is like a diving board under your foot. It's crazy. And with how light these are, and they're still able to give a little bit back to you, right? I mean, there's a lot of lightweight shoes out there, and a lot of them you just pummel right through. Whereas these, they really resist that, right? And that's basically the length of the shank, right? Yeah, carbon fiber is great for keeping the shoe light, but it's not necessarily the carbon fiber that's doing it, it's the length of the shank that is doing that and where it is placed in the shoe. You know, Under Armour does the same thing with a plastic shank. So, you know, obviously these are a little bit lighter and they can do the same things as a lot of, you know, more maximalist shoes out there, but I think it's the speed in these that really do it. If you're a lighter weight player and have some stronger legs, right? Honestly, these are gonna be a performance enhancing shoe in terms of speed, in terms of getting from one baseline to the next. I mean, going north to south, I can't imagine a faster shoe. So if you pride yourself on speed and you're someone that, you know, is trying to make a team or is trying to make a cut, based on your speed, this is something that probably could help you out in terms of getting up for rebounds, getting up for jump shots over somebody else. Once again, just easy, quick launch on these is crazy. And once you get used to the grip on them, once you get used to how tacky and how hard these things grip, you can also really put the brakes on these, especially if you're someone who plays a little bit more duck-footed, right? You play a little bit more low to the ground, knees in. Like, I mean, the stability concerns in these are going to be none for you. So if you're someone like that can really put the brakes on and create some separation, these are really going to aid in that on outdoor or indoor courts. I can't believe I'm saying that about these shoes, but they are not bad outdoor shoes whatsoever, as long as you know how to use them. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. You know, Li-Ning has had some pretty interesting shoes come out recently, the JB2, the Ushuai, as well as these. All of them bringing some new and really crazy performance to the table. Remember, you can put tech in shoes, you can put weird, you know, stuff in them and create marketing headlines with your shoes, but unless they do something, no one's gonna care. Whereas with Li-Ning recently, yeah, I mean, there have been some crazy innovations, but ones that actually work, and I think that's the rub. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And speaking of, if you do want to see the older sibling to the Li-Ning Gamma, the Ushuai 18 Ultra go under the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam, however light or heavy that thing may be. I'll see you somewhere in this video.